The challenge becomes, how do we engage our roadway users and the local community into the process and enable them to be part of the solution? And that's where our public information folks really thought out of the box. And that's where Kathleen and Tracy really hit it out of the park. They were pretty innovative in how they communicated and how they engaged the public. It's important for project delivery and project development staffs to really understand the importance of community engagement and meeting your stakeholders face to face. And most of the time, the people that are doing this are your public information staff. And they're the ones out there on the front lines that are having a lot of hard conversations with people that are directly affected. A project like this can really upset people's home lives that we never really consider or think about in delivering a project. The value added with having that boots on the ground approach is that the community will see that your team is trying to work with them.
Something to emphasize is the sheer scale of the public info effort and variety. We wanted everyone within the Roaring Fork and Gado River valleys to be aware that this was going to happen. I think typically how CDOT operates on 90% of our projects is we kind of just have the idea, okay, our public info, we're going to create it, post it, and the public's going to come to that to access it. That was not the attitude on this job whatsoever. This was very much like the vibe I got with Kathleen is if she heard a rumor that somebody didn't know about this project, she was going to go look them up, track them down, and educate them so nobody is surprised. I think it's a major point to emphasize.
We had the CDOT leadership team who encouraged us to innovate what we were doing and think of different ways to get involved in the community, help people. I was in a high school auditorium in front of the entire high school because we were trying to talk to kids about how to get out of their cars. And my kids that were in high school felt that was pretty unfortunate I was there, but it was a good laugh for all of us. For the water recreation user group, we held their meeting at the brew pub. So we were, again, doing some innovative things and also trying to bring some money back to the economy constantly. Even the community barbecues we had to invite the entire downtown core is an important part of that stakeholder message. We had a communications project leadership team. So we worked really closely with other public information officers up and down the valley. They were able to always expand and amplify our message. And so it was important to have them at the table phasing parts of the project so that they could get the message out as well.
With this project, one thing that our team did is we identified the major employers in the area, not only in Glowwood Springs, but all the way up valley to Aspen. You have contractors, you have Ski Co., which is the ski company, Colorado Mountain College, Valley View Hospital, the Glowwood Springs Hot Springs Resort, and a lot of hotels, restaurants, other things in the service-related industry. And there was a pretty concerted effort to engage all of these employers, and a lot of them got on board with how they were going to help us reduce traffic. I know one thing Valley View Hospital did, they have to have emergency doctors and surgeons and medical staff be available 24/7. And again, this is a high cost of living area, and a lot of the people that work in the hospital don't live in Glenwood. So Valley View Hospital actually rented some apartments where their on-call staff could reside during the bridge closure phase. So they were available when they were needed, and they didn't have to try and make their way into the middle of Glenwood through the detour phase and get through traffic and everything.
I do think CMC was like, we kind of pioneered remote, alternative, and flex work as a part of this. The county, they have their offices in Glenwood Springs, which is the county seat, but then they also have a lot of office space out in Rifle, which is the second largest town in the county. And a lot of employees were given the option of where you could work. I think the city went to a 4-day work week. So essentially, as part of our outreach to Valley View Hospital, which is a pretty critical facility for how the Valley operates, just from cardiac care, emergency care, labor and delivery. And basically what was kind of identified is it's great that we have this awesome facility with great providers, capable surgeons, things like that. But how do you get people there in emergency was a big question we had to contend with. And had this EMS stakeholder group kind of emerge out of that. And it was really all the law enforcement agencies up and down both sides of the Grand Fork Valley and the Colorado River Valley, as well as all of our EMS, paramedic, ambulance providers, even transport services, even if it's not necessarily an emergency, but here's an ambulance company that is moving people and they probably have to operate within certain time frames. Flight for life type companies were getting involved. So we had to try and coordinate. And what was decided very quickly was that we needed a dedicated communications conduit here. And fortunately, some of this infrastructure already exists. Most counties have dispatch centers that are going to handle this. Fortunately, being kind of in the region we are, a lot of these agencies have experience working with each other. There's a lot of mutual aid. They're usually assisting each other anyways, depending on certain events. So we weren't necessarily having to lay the foundation there. It was just trying to figure out how were we going to adapt to operate in this constrained traffic environment. Garfield County Communications already has the people already doing this, but we have to scale it up. We're expecting this to be a more complex environment, so we need to come up with some dedicated channel for that. And they were able to talk to their staff, able to identify a few people where they could upstaff to handle the communications component of this. And so from there kind of became two challenges. Was A, how do we get that person who they were going to have the information they need, have relevant data coming in, like real-time views of the road. And so we stood up a traffic operations center, approximately 10 live view cameras at strategic points on both sides of Glenwood, going up towards Aspen and then going out west to the smaller Western Garfield County communities. So they could keep an eye on traffic backups, estimated traffic times, what was the traffic situation. If there was an officer in Glenwood observing something, they could radio in, there was a person there, they kind of were all tied into that central node. We were able to work with some of the IT directors at a few of these fire agencies, and they set up an online portal that they could access. We had to get money for this dispatcher to be there, and we came up with the money fairly quickly. Really impressive. And this was happening within a few months of implementing the detour, right? That this was going to be our solution. And it wasn't a small sum of money, if I remember right. It was $50,000, somewhere in that scale. I was pretty impressed with how that went down as fast as it did. Like, I think the big thing to note too is we had a large law enforcement presence out there helping us move traffic. Every weekday peak hour, they were out there in force.
Tom Newland, who did some of the early design public outreach before Kathleen and I came on board, I think he'd used it on another project somewhere. And I just remember being in a meeting one day when he said, hey, what about this idea? Let's engage the school district. And essentially what it was is that there was a park where people could bring their kids, drop them off. They'd walk through the park, get on another bus, and it kept parents from coming through the detour route. Again, it was the idea of taking more cars off the detour route. And it was highly successful because Kathleen and her team recruited volunteers, local people that didn't even have kids in the school district, that would show up every morning to meet these groups of kids and safely walk them through the park. And I have a funny story. We had Matt Renew from Channel 9 come out one of the days that we were doing it. And so I was actually out in the park, and I remember this little boy who was just like, my tummy doesn't feel so good. And I was thinking, yeah, because this is a really interesting way to start your day. Like, coming out, getting some exercise. It was really such a collaboration with the community, with volunteers and the school district. They really did step up to be a tremendous partner for this, for this whole project.